Tappei has just released Arc 7 Chapter 19, and this will be a summary of that chapter. I highly recommend you check my summary for Chapter 18. Anyways, let's begin. The chapter starts with Todd sprawled on the floor. He fixes his disordered breathing. He isn't sleeping or dead. Todd gets asked if he's okay by Jamal, and he states that he's fine. Todd opens his eyes and recognizes the person, who is Jamal. The person then asks Todd to clear that up, and Todd looks to his flank and sees an arrow piercing him. Any higher and it would have pierced his heart. Todd states that it doesn't hurt as much as it looks, and Jamal states that he isn't worrying about Todd, so Jamal's a bit of a tsundere. Either way, we see that the people talking are Todd and Jamal, and Todd should fix up his wound and rest if it's really that bad. Jamal will gather up a group of people and then hunt down Subaru. Todd, however, thinks that this is a very bad idea. Todd explains the idea that this could be a trick and they could fall into an ambush. Furthermore, he points at the arrow, which was now pulled out. Both Jamal and Todd seem to recognize what the arrow may represent. Furthermore, Todd states that the second they chase after a small group of people, they will be hunted down individually, especially seeing how Todd was sniped across the map by an arrow. Jamal is building with rage that these opponents escaped. Todd is similar to Jamal. He's sad that he failed to kill them. Either way, they are certain that the small group of people will be back soon. As Todd and Jamal talk, Todd asks for a piggyback ride, to which Jamal declines, and the scene swaps. Subaru is stomping the ground, pushing himself forward, almost wanting to lean out of the ox cart being pulled. At the last second, Subaru jumped out of the carriage. He thought he heard voices, but he moved on regardless. Subaru pushed his way to the building at the center of the village. People were looking at him, but he didn't care. The man with the demon mask stated that Subaru was back faster than expected. Subaru didn't care. He walked up to Abel, grabbed his mask off, revealing his face, and pulled his arm back to punch Abel on the nose. However, someone told him to wait. This was Zelda, who grabbed Subaru's arm for a moment, telling him not to punch him in the face. Subaru then punched Abel in the stomach. As Subaru went away, he said this wasn't the end, and Abel said Subaru is greedy. The scene swaps to Flop talking about the Shudrak people being unique and famous, a great discovery for them to be here. Medium is actually more interested in the fact that they're all fit and have abs like she does. Sitting on the ox carriage, the Shudrakians would surround them. It seems like these siblings have no fear or anxiety and seem to get along with most people. The normal reaction to be surrounded like this would to be feeling fear, but these siblings were relaxing. We see two people talking about the values of life, namely about the people Subaru brought back. We see that this is actually Abel and Subaru. Again, they're back in the meeting hall staring at each other through the campfire, but there's also other people in the hall present. We see that Rem, Kuna and Holly is with Subaru, and Rem explains that the siblings helped them. We also see that Mizelda and Tarita are sitting with Abel. Lewis was with Utakata since they were the same age, and they were most likely with the O'Connell siblings at the square. Subaru explains that the O'Connell siblings and their group are being targeted by the soldiers in the city. However, he is corrected by Abel, stating that the Imperial Army is targeting Subaru. In other words, those who serve Wallachia are Subaru's enemies. Subaru realizes that the hostility is the result of the actions he took, namely referring to when he led the Wallachian encampment, the soldiers, Todd and Jamal, etc., to the Elgina, and Abel agrees that this hostility was before they even met the Shudrak people. Regardless, Subaru understands that he was an enemy and it was his fault, but other people shouldn't be targeted, of course referring to people like Rem, Medium, Flop and Lewis. We see that Abel had predicted that the survivors would go to Guaral and instructed Holly and Kuna to wait and see if Subaru and the gang escaped. Kuna didn't realize the situation was that bad, but regardless, Subaru blames Abel because he predicted everything and he said nothing. Despite this, Abel doesn't show any remorse or any sign of apologizing. Subaru prods Abel for an answer, and Abel states that he told Subaru it would be a hard road if he left. Abel continues to explain it's illogical that the survivors would go to the nearest town. Subaru is just simply rushing into things without thinking. Subaru again states that Abel should have told him. Abel's lack of telling them was bad. For example, if Vincent viewed Subaru and the group as enemies, not telling them that there was going to be an ambush at Guaral would essentially seem like Vincent was trying to trap them. Yet Vincent actually sees Subaru and the group as allies, yet he didn't say anything. So it just goes to show how Vincent simply does not care. The fact that Abel led them into danger and didn't say anything was the problem. Subaru was angry, stating that he got Ram into danger also. Abel continued to stare at Subaru in silence. Subaru again asks for an answer, and Abel states that he's saving Subaru from extra trouble. Abel picks up a lump of soil and explains that foolish people like Subaru need to see things for their own eyes rather than listening to a wise man. Furthermore, Abel also confirmed that there's now no escape for Subaru now that everyone is essentially targeting him. Subaru realized that he's actually getting destroyed by Abel from every direction, and of course in front of the Emperor of Wallachia, Subaru is like a monkey in a cage, easily manipulated. Subaru asks what Abel wants, and Abel states that he wants his position back. He's explained this before. The current empire is his enemy, and so he will defeat them, and Subaru will help them. Subaru states, "You want me to help you?" And Vincent states that he has no reason to harm Subaru. Here, Vincent is letting Subaru bring up his own knowledge and foundations to argue so they can discuss the next steps, but it's obvious Subaru is outclassed. Subaru, trying to manage to make a coherent argument, states that he could sell Vincent out, and Vincent states how many people would accept Subaru with open arms after burning their camp down. Furthermore, after the incident in Guaral, where Subaru went in, wrecked up the place, and then left, Subaru is unaware of how many people perceive him to be an actual threat. Subaru realized he's actually driven into a corner. All of his statements have been sort of debunked. He wouldn't be able to actually attack Vincent because of the Shadrakian people, and he wouldn't be able to sell Vincent off due to the fact that he was an enemy of Wallachia. So he didn't know what to do. Todd flashed in the back of his mind. Subaru realized he can't do anything, and he asks if he's on the palm of Vincent's hand. Vincent explains that he couldn't even keep his own people on the palm of his hand, hence why he's sitting on the ground currently. This was really unusual because Abel was actually mocking himself. The first time Subaru has actually heard him self-mocking. In other words, an uncrowned emperor was sitting on the floor in the middle of a forest in the middle of nowhere is proof of a blunder for which there is no excuse. Subaru doesn't want to be a pawn in Abel's game and wants to know what Abel is thinking. Subaru thinks to himself, why would Abel want him close? He has no power or skills, so it's most likely for his appendages or his accessories that he has. While Subaru is thinking, they get interrupted by Flop, who walks in and greets everyone. Flop introduces himself with his upbeat personality. However, the siblings aren't really welcome as they haven't completed the blood life ritual. Flop states he would take it, thinking it's some sort of welcoming ritual. Of course, he doesn't realize that he would have to fight a witch beast, but he's upbeat anyway. Abel chimes in stating that Flop is noisy, and Flop realizes he must be the head of the village due to his unique attire. However, from looks, Abel doesn't look like he's from Shadrak, or he's a Shadrakian member. Abel states that Flop said he was a peddler. Flop states he is, and he travels with his sister and their ox selling items. Abel then turns to Subaru, asking whether or not he met him on the streets. And Subaru is mad at the way Abel is sort of treating the Flop siblings, or the O'Connell siblings, like resources or objects. Abel states that he won't waste time on trivial details and gives them a good job for coming back. Abel did not care for Flop or Medium's humanity. He was more interested in something else. He asked Flop how familiar he was with guaral. Flop states that he's well versed in the city and the people of the city. Abel states that peddlers know certain loopholes or two, and Subaru is confused. Abel tells Subaru that he's an idiot. Subaru catches on to the lines of thinking, and Abel then goes on to confirm it. They'll be taking Guaral as their base of operations next, using Flop's knowledge to get in. The chapter ends there, and we didn't really get much that chapter, but we now know that we're most likely going to get a strike force going to Guaral to destroy the place. I believe Rowan will come back into the picture at some point, because it was sort of built upon in earlier chapters, so look forward to that.